In this lesson, we will look at changes in government in Europe from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. In particular, we will focus on a group of rulers known as the New Monarchs, because they worked hard to increase their power. We will examine the similar strategies that the New Monarchs used to achieve their goal. After that, we will see how the New Monarchs of France, England, and Spain grew more powerful and laid the foundation for the modern nations of Western Europe. In the Middle Ages, kings received most of their income from their own personal lands and from grants of money from their vassals. When they went to war, medieval kings had to rely on armies mostly made up of their vassals, who owed military service in exchange for the lands they had received from the king. These armies were temporary, expensive, and often unreliable. The nobles of the Middle Ages enjoyed many privileges and valued their freedom and independence. Powerful nobles waged war on their own, taxed their peasants, and created their own laws for the lands they controlled. In many places, kings were required to consult with nobles and church officials when making important decisions. This was often done through councils or representative assemblies, such as Parliament in England or the Cortes in Spain. These assemblies frequently used their influence to limit the powers of the king. In this way, medieval kingdoms were more like collections of many small independent states, only loosely under the authority of the king, than actual states in the modern sense. In most medieval kingdoms, the church controlled large amounts of land, so kings had to share power with church officials and work with the Pope in Rome. During the Renaissance, however, economic and political changes in Europe led to the rise of what historians call new monarchs. The goal of the new monarchs was to increase their power through a process of centralization in which they brought all the functions of the state, such as law, the military, and taxation, under their direct control. In the process, new monarchs would reduce the power and independence of both the nobility and the church in their lands. The new monarchs were tough and cunning. In their ruthless push for greater power, they subordinated morality to results. Their actions reflected many of the ideas discussed by Machiavelli in his work The Prince. The efforts of the new monarchs helped to lay the foundations for the modern nations of Europe. Several factors led to the rise of the new monarchs in the 1400s. First, the crises of the 14th century weakened the nobility and clergy, creating an opportunity for aggressive monarchs to seize more power. The 100 Years' War hurt the nobility, while the Great Schism tore the church apart and brought into question the authority of the popes. Combined with the ravages of the Black Death, these events all created suffering and instability, and left the people desperate for strong leadership to restore order. The growth of towns during the High Middle Ages produced an increasingly prosperous middle class, who gained wealth from peace and trade. Rulers allied with the middle class, who supported strong leaders that could impose the law and order that would help trade expand. Finally, changes in military technology, especially the use of gunpowder, enabled monarchs to build armies that could successfully destroy castles and defeat armored knights. This reduced the ability of the nobility to resist the king. The new monarchs used similar strategies and policies to achieve their goals. These strategies were interconnected and reinforced one another. New monarchs placed heavier taxes and fees on the growing population of peasants, artisans, and merchants. These taxes and fees were often placed on land and goods, and since they did not affect the nobility, did not require approval from representative assemblies. They also borrowed money from wealthy merchant bankers. Once monarchs had more money, they could afford to create permanent, professional armies equipped with modern weapons such as cannons and muskets. With these armies, kings could impose order and reduce their dependence on the nobility. Prior to the 1400s, most of Europe was a patchwork of customs and traditions. New monarchs established uniform codes of law that would be administered by royal courts, staffed with officials appointed by the ruler. This process was aided by the spread of Roman law, the study of which had expanded greatly during the Middle Ages and Renaissance. Roman law emphasized the role of the king as a supreme legal authority. It was at this time that kings began to be called majesty and refer to themselves as sovereign. Collecting taxes, recruiting and maintaining an army, and imposing royal law or complex tasks. In response, new monarchs built bureaucracies to handle the increasing business of government. These bureaucracies were staffed by civil servants drawn from the well-educated middle class. Because these middle-class bureaucrats gained their positions through merit and education rather than birth, they were more loyal to the king. By building professional armies and creating royal bureaucracies, new monarchs reduced their dependence on the traditional nobility. In France, the monarchs even created a new class of nobles by selling titles to royal officials. These men became known as nobles of the robe, in contrast to the older warrior nobility, who were called nobles of the swords. Finally, new monarchs took advantage of corruption and weakness in the church to assert their control over the clergy in their realms. Once brought under the monarch's control, the church could serve as an important tool to promote loyalty to the king. Since religious minorities were seen as potential threats to the unity of the nation and the authority of the monarch, these groups were viciously persecuted. The efforts of the new monarchs to impose their authority were aided by what some historians have called the military revolution of the 1500s and 1600s. Medieval battles had generally been small and were dominated by mounted knights. This began to change with the 100 Years' War, as the widespread use of the longbow, crossbow, and gunpowder made castles and knights obsolete. By the 1500s, improvements in gunpowder technology led to important changes in how wars were fought. As armies grew increasingly larger and more complex, only kings and their bureaucracies could manage the vast numbers of men and resources now required to fight this new type of warfare. The military revolution led to changes in tactics and training. Gunpowder weapons were powerful, but slow and inaccurate. This meant larger armies had to be created, and they had to be well trained in the use of new weaponry. Maurice of Nassau, a famous Dutch general and military strategist, insisted that his soldiers train regularly, and in 1597, standard terms of command were introduced throughout the Dutch army to guarantee uniformity. Gustavus Adolphus, the leader of Sweden in the early 1600s, was a master of the new tactics. He not only mastered how to effectively combine artillery and infantry for maximum effect on the battlefield, he also enhanced their mobility and flexibility. To find men to fill the ranks of these larger armies, monarchs often relied on mercenaries, but these were never sufficient. Many men volunteered to join the growing armies to escape poverty or find adventure. When the supply of mercenaries and volunteers proved inadequate, kings would resort to conscription, in which men were forced by the government to fight, often for little pay. Not surprisingly, armies made up of poorly paid mercenaries, conscripts, and volunteers proved difficult to control, and this, along with the changing nature of weaponry, led to the need for more strict and harsh discipline. As the size of armies increased, problems of logistics and supply became much worse. Because armies were so large and required such enormous amounts of flour, meat, gunpowder, and other necessities, it was virtually impossible to keep them adequately fed and supplied. As a result, most military commanders encouraged their forces to live off the land by plundering food and other goods from the people. An army that failed to do so would soon disperse or die from hunger. As a result, war now affected civilians even more deeply, as roving armies raided villages, seized food, and slaughtered inhabitants. Under the Capetian dynasty, which had ruled from 987 to 1328, the French monarchy had steadily expanded from its original small nucleus around Paris. The Capetians accomplished this through a combination of inheritance, marriage, war, and intrigue. In the 1300s, however, plague and war ravaged the country, while its eastern neighbor Burgundy grew more powerful and threatened to rival France for leadership on the continent. It was left to the Valois dynasty, which successfully guided France through the end of the 100 Years' War, to rebuild the nation and establish strong monarchy. The foundation for the rise of the Valois was laid by Charles VII. With help from Joan of Arc, Charles brought the 100 Years' War to a successful conclusion and expelled the English from French soil. He reorganized his royal council by increasing the influence of middle-class men, built France's first permanent professional standing army, and paid for all of this by strengthening royal finances with the gabelle, a tax on salt, and the taille, a tax on land. Charles's successor, Louis XI, was called the Spider because of his treacherous character. Louis encouraged economic growth through trade and promoting industries such as silk weaving. With his increased revenues, Louis expanded the royal army and used it to suppress the nobility and conquer additional territories. What he did not gain by war, Louis acquired through strategic marriages. By the end of his reign, Louis had turned a medieval kingdom of semi-independent states into the beginning of the French nation. Francis I, who came to power in 1515, was one of France's greatest kings. He was a patron of the arts and a supporter of the Northern Renaissance. He continued to strengthen the power of the monarchy, especially in the area of religion. Francis worked hard to gain control over the Church in France. In 1516, he signed an agreement with Pope Leo X called the Concordat of Bologna. This treaty authorized the king to nominate bishops, abbots, and other high-ranking officials in France. This gave the monarch effective control over the leadership of the French Church, and ensured that the Church would support royal power. This would be especially important during the Protestant Reformation, as French kings fought hard to maintain the position of the Catholic Church that supported them. Following the 100 Years' War, England was plunged into the Wars of the Roses, a civil war between two factions of nobles. The Tudor family emerged victorious from the struggle and established a strong dynasty that would rule England from 1485 until 1603. The first Tudor king, Henry VII, laid the foundation for a strong national monarchy. To save money, Henry avoided involving England in foreign wars. To improve the economy and raise money, he encouraged the wool industry and strengthened the navy, which protected English trade. Henry weakened the power of the nobility by prohibiting private armies and expanding the influence of middle-class men in the Royal Council, the administrative body that handled most government business. To further curb the nobility, Henry established the Court of the Star Chamber. This was a special court in which prominent nobles who defied the monarchy would be tried and punished. The sessions of the court were held in secret, and there were no appeals, witnesses, or juries. Today, the Court of the Star Chamber is seen as a form of brutal tyranny, but at the time it was popular because it helped maintain order. Henry VII established the basis for English political and commercial power, but his successor Henry VIII struggled to build on this foundation. Henry VIII's lack of a strong heir prompted his split with the Catholic Church, which led to decades of religious conflict in England that was not resolved until the reign of Henry's daughter Elizabeth. During this period, the English Parliament increased in strength and its ability to curb royal power. This paved the way for England's evolution into a constitutional monarchy during the 17th century. In the mid-15th century, Spain did not yet exist. The Iberian Peninsula was a culturally diverse patchwork of feudal kingdoms. Although Christianity was the dominant force, the area also included significant Muslim and Jewish communities that were a legacy of the conquest of Spain by the Muslim Moors in the 700s. Beginning in the 1100s, the Christians began a long military campaign, known as the Reconquista, to regain control of the peninsula from the Muslims. By the late 1400s, the Christian kingdoms of Castile and Aragon were the most powerful on the peninsula, while the Muslims held only the small kingdom of Granada on the southern coast. In 1469, the marriage of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile created a dynastic union of the Iberian Peninsula's two most powerful royal houses. Ruling from the 1470s until the early 1500s, Ferdinand and Isabella completed the Reconquista with the capture of Granada in 1492, and worked to develop the beginning of a Spanish national identity by promoting political and religious unity within their realm. Ferdinand and Isabella took several steps to consolidate their power in Spain. They worked to curb aristocratic power in Spain by reducing the numbers and influence of nobles in the royal council, which handled much of the administration of the kingdom. Instead, middle-class men trained in Roman law were appointed to the council. Ferdinand and Isabella also made use of the Hermandades, which were armed groups in the Spanish towns that served as police and judges in order to maintain law and order. The Spanish monarchs allied with these groups against the aristocracy. Following the lead of their neighbor Portugal, Ferdinand and Isabella sponsored voyages of exploration that by the end of their reign had laid the foundation for the formation of a vast empire in the Americas that contributed greatly to the wealth and power of Spain. The Catholic Church was an important institution in Spain, and Ferdinand and Isabella formed an alliance with the Spanish Pope Alexander VI, who gave them the important right to appoint high-ranking church officials within their territory. As in France, this gave the Spanish monarchy effective control over the church and made the church a bulwark of royal power. Nowhere was the influence of the church and the desire for religious unity more evident than in Spain's treatment of its minority populations during the 1400s. After 1478, the Spanish Inquisition, led by the notorious Torquemada, enforced strict religious orthodoxy. One of the main targets of the Inquisition was the population of New Christians, also known as conversos. These were Jews and Muslims who had converted to Christianity, but whose loyalty to both the faith and therefore the monarchy was questioned. The persecution of New Christians was most likely motivated as much by greed and envy as by religious passions, for in many areas of Spain the conversos had achieved great success in education, the arts, and commerce. While the Inquisition hunted New Christians, practicing Jews were exiled from Spain by a royal edict in 1492, and Muslims were later also banished from the kingdom. By the beginning of the 16th century, Spain had emerged as the most powerful nation in Europe. Access to the wealth of the Americas enabled it to build the mightiest army and navy, while also enjoying a golden age of art and culture. Nevertheless, there were problems on the horizon. Much of the wealth from the Americas was wasted on luxuries and long fruitless wars, while the expulsion of the Jews and Muslims and persecution of the New Christians deprived Spain of some of its most talented individuals. Now that we have completed this lesson, examine the questions on this slide. After I finish speaking, pause the video and see if you can answer them based on what you have heard. Use this as a way to help you review for the assessments.